Всем привет! Сегодня заканчиваем игрушку What Remains of Edith Finch. Думаю, тут еще на часик геймплея, истории. Самому даже интересно, чем закончится все это.
My mom moved up to the loft after her brothers died. At the time, it was as far away as she could get. Religion was another thing my mom never talked about, but I think it helped her a lot after her dad died. She spent a summer building houses in Calcutta, where she met my dad, Sanjay.
Привет, Жека.
My mom moved to India a week after graduation and got a job teaching English.
Мама уехала в Индию.
Louis was born a year later.
Льюис, это, наверное, наш брат.
When my dad died, I don't think Mom knew where else to go. I'm sure Edie was happy to have her back.
Милтон, Льюис и
And to
Дон.
see kids in the house again.
Эдит. Да, очень прекрасно понимаю ощущение бабушки, когда в дом возвращаются дети.
The
Всегда
house had to
радуешься.
get a little bigger, but Edie was used to that.
Ну так, типа совсем чуть-чуть. Еще 37 этажей. Да что игра красивая, просто не могу насмотреться, нарадоваться.
And for a while, things were good. Almost normal.
Тут даже школа есть в этом доме. Просто представьте себе.
But it didn't last. The beginning of the end was Milton's 10th birthday, when Edie gave him a castle.
Ну, замок. Я помню эту психоделику, сейчас будет.
After Milton disappeared, the only thing he left behind was a room full of paintings.
Открой. Спасибо. Как дела, Жека? Как настроение? Классно, я тоже хочу себе такую комнату. С лифтом вообще. С своей террасой. Обсерватория. Вот так бы я сказал.
Milton Finch in The Magic Paintbrush.
Сейчас он туда уйдет, да?
I was 4 when Milton disappeared.
Милтон. Мальчик очень любил рисовать, судя по всему.
Mom spent months searching for my brother. Then she sealed the doors. Whatever Milton had found in the house, Mom didn't want it getting out.
Нет. Нечаянно сюда зашел. Так, ну, кажется, наверх.
Mom definitely blamed Edie, but I think Louis blamed himself. After he graduated, he just spent more and more time in his room. Until Mom got him a job at the cannery.
Да, сейчас будет психоделика. Небольшая такая. А Луис?
Everyone always told me to stay out of Louis's room. Except Louis.
О, понимаю. Колян.
Louis's room smelled very, very familiar. That part of him lived on.
Иди, ты куда вышла вообще? Сан-Жуань. Парень явно был непростой. Что такое? Кальян. Спираль какая-то. И каннабис. Все это немножко навевает.
Louis and I spent a lot of time playing games together, but he was surprisingly bad at them. He died a lot.
Угу. Ну, комнатка прикольная.
Dear Mrs. Finch, as Lewis's psychiatrist, I can understand your desire for an explanation. As I see it, the trouble began in January, shortly after we convinced your son to seek treatment for substance abuse. Newly sober, I believe Lewis first noticed the monotony of his daily life. He kept working at the cannery, but he withdrew part of himself. In our sessions, I saw the same behavior. His mind began to wander. I asked him to describe it. He said he started small, imagining a labyrinth. He'd feel his way about. Then something moved. Bats. And toads. And things that have not names. He knew it was all in his head. But he took it very seriously. I had hoped he'd find himself. But he found something more. I worried about him then, daydreaming at the cannery. I spoke with his boss, but he said Lewis had become a model employee. Methodical, tireless, focused. Like a whole new Lewis. So I let him go on. I even encouraged him. It seemed very promising at first. He told me he'd made a new friend. On the edge of a city he named Lewis Topia. He built the city up slowly, brick by brick. Then he made musicians. And songs for them to play. He talked about starting a band. And he was always humming something. Every day his imagination grew stronger. He no longer spoke at the cannery. But his chopping was as reliable as ever. Then one day it struck him that all the cheering crowds, even the stones under his feet, were all in his imagination, so he could do whatever he wished. He held an election for mayor, and he won. They begged him to stay, but his mind was already wandering. It became a game for him. He'd conquer a city, then immediately push on. New Louisville.
New York.
St. Louis.
That's St. Louis.
He started drifting away from our reality. Minneapolis, until one day he forgot to go home from the cannery. Even as his mother pleaded with him, part of Lewis kept sailing on. In Lewisburg, he heard rumors of a beautiful prince.
Стой. Не в другую сторону. Ладно, прогрессивные человеки из Европы.
The prince was on his own quest for
Никаких радуг.
sinister serpents. He followed the sound of his electric sitar.
Какие могут быть вообще сравнения?
His chase led him to a golden palace east of the sun and west of the moon. Even then, his logic remained sound.
Да, немножко не туда свернуть.
He knew the world was all in his imagination. But he was so proud of having created it. In his own eyes, he'd become something greater than a king. For someone who'd never known success in the real world, I think it was overwhelming. And then it struck him that the real Lewis was not the one chopping salmon, but the one climbing the steps of a golden palace. My imagination is as real as my body, he told me. It was hard to argue with him.
Да-да-да, да-да-да. Все правильно. Я заметил это только очень поздно.
He began to forget the world we know.
Слушай. После наркотиков такого бывает, конечно. Отходники такие жесткие.
I think it pained him to remember Lewis, the cannery worker.
Вот тебе Луис. Стоит комса, это рыбка.
He began to despise the man with a royal contempt.
А в голове он король. Луис. Брат.
I still thought I could save him. Even after he said he was being crowned king over all the lands of wonder. The palace would be packed with his companions.
Ну, история интересная, Луис. Должен признать. Смотри, Хагрид.
Including the wise Calico and insisted on advising him.
Гриффиндор.
Prince waited,
Слизерин.
holding his crown.
Какой принц? Ну какой принц?
There was only one thing left to do.
Ой, блин, не хочу говорить.
Bend down his head. And the rest I think you know. Mrs. Finch, your son was a kind man who will be missed by all of us who knew him.
My brother was really cool. I wish you could have met him.
Да, кто не понял, она обращается к своей будущей дочке. Я так подозреваю.
way back from Lewis's funeral, my mom told me to start packing. She waited until the day before we left to tell Edie. I'm not sure if she wanted to make it easier or harder.
Здесь же комната наша Edith.
I wish we'd stayed. But I understand why we left.
Может быть, это?
My mom ended up leaving everything behind.
Санджей Кумар. Так, непонятно, чья это комната.
What happened that
Ладно.
night had been coming for a long time.
И вечер случилось то, к чему все уже шло уже давно.
Maybe it should have come sooner.
Вот, Edith. Что же случилось? Бабушка умерла?
But it had to end one way or another. All that's left now is to tell you about that last night. That whole last day, Edie just watched us pack and didn't say a word. Until supper, when she raised her glass and said,
To our final night together, and all our final nights apart.
Grandma, you know what I said about alcohol. Some of your medications are very
Edith,
specific.
I left a present for you in the hallway. Why don't you go open it? The grown-ups have to argue now.
I'm sorry, you're right. We're all leaving tomorrow. Let's just enjoy our last...
I'm not leaving.
Edith, you're excused.
Угу. Грустное такое уже настроение.
the power had been shut off that morning, but Edie always had plenty of candles.
Очень печально просто. Я понимаю, бабушкина, ну,
When my
состояние
mom
души.
said the library, I don't think she knew about the other entrance.
Она не хочет, чтобы никто уезжал из семейного гнезда.
Or that Edie had a key to it.
Маму тоже понять можно. Скоро узнаем все,
You're
Жека.
afraid of isn't going to end when you leave the house. Edith has a right to know these stories.
My children are dead because of your stories. I think it's best if Edith and I leave tonight. We'll have the nursing home send a van for you in the morning. Okay?
Ой-ой-ой, это вообще печально.
Dear Edith, there's so many stories I wish I could tell you, but there's only time for one. This is about what happened on the night you were born. That night, the tide went way, way out. It was the first
Идем в
and
наш
last
дом.
time I ever saw the old house aground. There'd been an earthquake out in the middle of the ocean. They called it the lowest tide in 1,000 years. God, it smelled awful. You know, I've seen that house every day of my life. But I never thought I'd go back to it. When the fog rolled in, I lost my way.
Странно то, что она могла до него доплыть столько раз.
I got turned around.
Не сделал этого.
For a while, I wondered. I started seeing things. Things I'd forgotten had ever existed.
Эта фраза мне очень напомнила фразу из начала фильма. Вещи, которых давно позабыл.
But when I saw them, they felt like old friends. That night, a lot of things came back to me. Or maybe I came back to them. Things I can't explain, but that I need you to try and...
Edith, what are you doing in here?
It's mine.
Edith!
Mom, you're gonna rip it! Let go! I kicked and screamed, but Mom dragged me to the car. I never saw Great-Grandma Edie again. The next morning, the band came to pick her up, but she was already gone. After that, we moved around a lot. We both tried to make the best of it.
Трогательная история.
A few years went by. My mom didn't like to talk about it, but she started getting sick a lot. The rest happened pretty quickly. She got better for a while, and then she didn't. And then I was alone. The last Finch left alive. Until I found out about you. I'm still not sure what to tell you about all this. If we lived forever, maybe we'd have time to understand things. But as it is, I think the best we can do is try to open our eyes. And appreciate how strange and brief all of this is. This journal was supposed to be for you.
К чему это все идет?
But now I hope you'll never see it. I just want to meet you. And tell you all these stories myself. But I guess if you're reading this now, things didn't work out that way. This is where your story begins. I'm sorry I won't be there to see it. It's a lot to ask, but I don't want you to be sad that I'm gone. I want you to be amazed that any of us ever had a chance to be here at all. Good luck.
Конец прохождения. Грустная, печальная история. Даже слегка трудновато говорить. The end of everything. Но игра очень шикарная. Мне кажется, даже мертвого за живого все равно она подцепит за живое. Теперь есть возможность повторить историю, чтобы начать с самого начала. Выберите Edith. То есть можно вернуться. Сейчас, секундочку, хочу кое-что проверить. Кое-что проверить очень быстро. Я понял. В целом, наверное, все. Заставляет задуматься, да? Да, очень такая душевная игра. Прежде всего, она говорит о том, что время скоротечно и нужно ценить общество своих близких. Вот. Смотри, Жека, есть вариант. Я могу сейчас включить другую игру. Если будешь смотреть, то могу через минут 10 запустить. Как скажешь. Блин, ну, до сих пор меня не отпускает, знаешь, так ком к горлу поднялся и держится. Игрушка прям замечательная. Без спору. Да, давай. Все, спасибо, что смотрел. Давай тогда завтра продолжим. Пиши под... да. Пиши под стримом. Может быть, какие-то игрушки ты еще хочешь пройти. Или в целом отзыв. Как тебе игра? Все, спасибо, что смотрел.